The number one thing that can trigger a dismissive avoidant into deactivation and the eventual discard of a partner is something that signifies that the relationship is real. Early in the relationship, it's what's called the shared fantasy. It's not real, at least not in the eyes of the avoidant. It is a romance novel. It's a movie. It's a fairy tale. The avoidant, well, they've spent a lifetime suppressing their emotions, bottling them up, feeling quite disconnected and often quite numb. But early in the relationship, there is dopamine flowing. You are giving them that external validation that they so desperately crave. But there's no threat of emotional intimacy yet. So they are feeling good. This dopamine is bringing out all these bottled up emotions, and the avoidant is pouring them onto you. This is why many dismissive avoidants can love bomb a partner, but they are wrapped up in the fantasy. They are riding high, and they may even believe that they finally met their person because they're feeling so wonderful. They're used to feeling quite numb and detached, but they're feeling great with you. Then time goes by, and quite often, somewhere between the 4 to 6 month mark, something will happen that triggers the avoidant. And this something is usually an event or somebody saying something or something that signifies that it's not just a fantasy, that this is a real relationship with real growing emotional intimacy. And that scares the avoidant to their core. Dismissive avoidants, they fear emotional intimacy. They fear vulnerability. And it all goes back to childhood where they were emotionally neglected by their parents or their caretakers. So they learned to associate emotional closeness with abandonment because they learned that the people you rely on for your emotional needs are going to disappoint you. They're going to reject you. They're going to abandon you. These fears lie dormant in the subconscious of the avoidant as they're an adult if they haven't done the work to heal themselves. Now that the relationship is progressing into the next stage, into something real, there is now an implied vulnerability that comes along with things like commitment and a blossoming relationship. And it can be something along the lines of a trip you took together. Maybe you took a wonderful holiday, a wonderful vacation together, and you never felt closer. But that closeness triggers the fears because it means growing emotional intimacy. Or maybe finally you ask for commitment labels. Commitment equals vulnerability, which equals abandonment in the eyes of the avoidant. Triggers their fears, causes them to shut down. Maybe they met your family or friends, or you met theirs, and somebody made a comment about how you two will make a wonderful married couple. Well, that definitely signifies that the relationship is real, triggers the fears, the avoidant panics, and shuts down and deactivates. When they shut down and deactivate, what they're doing is they take their feelings for you. They take their feelings for their partner and they stuff them. They bury them. They don't allow themselves to access their own feelings for their partner. This is how they keep themselves safe, by keeping you, their partner, at an emotional distance. They need to keep that emotional distance to keep themselves safe from abandonment because emotional closeness equals abandonment. So they push you away. They do various different deactivating strategies like disappearing for days, no longer doing PDA, perhaps taking time and space, or canceling on plans, or just being very distant from you in general, or abruptly ending the relationship, giving you nothing but vague excuses like, I'm not ready for a relationship right now, I just need time and space, you deserve somebody that can love you the way that you deserve to be loved. Maybe if we met in a different time, right person, wrong time, I'm just too busy with work right now, and the list of excuses can go on. But this is a person that has had their fears triggered, the fears of abandonment that are rooted in emotional intimacy. So they tried to protect themselves by pushing you away and taking their emotions and suppressing them, running from them, not processing them, and not reflecting on them, because that's how they learn to stay safe. And because they're not reflecting on their emotions, they can't really give you a coherent explanation as to why they're feeling this way, because they're refusing to think about it. You can't really articulate your feelings if you refuse to reflect on them. But this is a maladaptive coping strategy. It's a defense strategy from the avoidant. And it's maladaptive because it hurts both them and it hurts the other person. It doesn't actually keep them safe. It actually keeps them alone and lonely, because deep down at their core, they do actually long for love and intimacy, but they fear the very thing that they long for. And it's usually somewhere in the 4 to 6 month mark where something will happen in the relationship that signifies that it's not just a movie anymore, that it's not just a romance novel, it's now the real thing. And with real relationships and real commitment comes implied emotional vulnerability, emotional availability, especially with a partner that is showing them availability and vulnerability. If they are with a partner that is showing them love, affection, commitment, dedication, effort, and time, those are precisely the partners that will trigger their fears the most. Because keep in mind, due to the emotional neglect in childhood, the avoidant has a very low self-esteem. They felt like they were unlovable. If they were lovable, their own parents would have shown them love, but they didn't get it. So they believe that they are unlovable. And if a good partner that treats them well gets behind that castle wall that they built around their heart, this person is also going to figure out that the avoidant is unlovable. This person is going to figure out that they are, in fact, too good for the avoidant, and they're going to reject and abandon them. So the dismissive avoidant feels that it's safer to do the rejecting, to do the abandoning, than risk being abandoned themselves. And due to the lack of self-reflection and due to the disconnect from their own emotions, they can also block off their own ability to feel empathy in the moment. When they shut down and do a blindsiding discard, they can be very cold in the eyes, completely lack empathy, and sometimes even seem quite annoyed at your emotions. However, this is not an indication that you did anything wrong. If this is a dismissive avoidant that's shutting down and discarding you, it's an indication that you actually did everything right. You were a loving partner, which is precisely why they're pushing you away. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting themselves as being too good for you. So don't personalize it. Recognize that this is an emotionally unavailable person that fears being abandoned by you, and they fear it so much that they will actually self-sabotage. And because of their fears and their insecurities, they become hyper-focused on themselves, and they only consider their own perceived wants and needs in the moment. And they're not considering how this impacts their partner. It's actually quite a selfish behavior because it is wholly self-absorbed. But recognize it's a reflection of them and their attachment wounds as well as their character. And that the number one thing that triggers a dismissive avoidant is emotional intimacy, and something that triggers them that indicates that emotional intimacy is building. In other words, something that happens that indicates that the relationship is real and it's no longer just a shared fantasy.